Welcome to Own It, the podcast where we talk to real estate thought leaders about embracing your strengths, taking your career to new heights, and owning your future. I'm your host, Hillary Saunders, co-founder and chief broker officer at Side, and joined along with my co-host, Spencer Kroll. Hello, Spencer.
Hello, Hillary. I am so looking forward to today's guest. Who, luckily we had a chance to talk with her before we're starting this. She's amazing. I'll just put it that way.
Okay, let's talk leadership and coaching. So our next guest, Alicia Soekawa, is the founder of the Collaborative out in Virginia. And she has this amazing history and career, which started in medical sales. And now she's translated those skills and life lessons that she learned into creating a company that really is transformed not just how she runs a team, but how she saw how a team or a company was run at her prior brokerage, and she wanted to make changes and do it her way. So she's a rock star. She has owned her personality, her gusto, and everything from day one. And I'm so excited to bring on our guest, Alicia. Welcome to Own It, Alicia. I'm so excited that you decided to join us.
Well, thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Absolutely. I'm so excited just to dive into learning more about you and your company, the Collaborative. But let's back up. How did you get into real estate at all? Because you were in medical sales before, right?
Yes. So my whole identity was wrapped around either I was going to be able to be a doctor or a lawyer were the two choices I was given because I'm Korean and I'm an immigrant. And so I didn't like either of those. So when I decided to go into sales, my parents were like, okay, that's okay, because at least you're going to be talking to doctors. So I felt like supported in that arena. But I did go into medical sales pretty much right out of college and worked for a smaller dermatology company and then went into oncology through the dermatology space, selling an injectable for psoriatic arthritis, which then turned to rheumatoid arthritis, and then went towards something called a hospital health systems manager. I got promoted into oncology that way. So I kind of followed the whole corporate track of big business, and I got really burnt out. I don't know if any of you have had that experience where it doesn't really make sense why you're not happy, but I just wasn't happy. I felt very...
I got burnt out litigating.
I think I call that Wednesday morning, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's because Tuesday you party too hard, Spencer.
I will tell you, I think ultimately for myself, I didn't really see myself growing in that position. And I think as human beings, we all need to grow. Or if you're not growing, you're dying. Like just standing still makes that feeling like you're dying, like a little piece of you's dying. So the best way I tell people, like when I decided to make the decision to leave, I rose my hand actually during a period when they were cutting Salesforce. I was not cut and I was disappointed. So that kind of told me psychologically, like, what's wrong with you? Like, you should be relieved. I thought that I was going to get a package and I was like all excited and I didn't get cut. I was like, what? I was so sad. And everyone's like, what is wrong with you? And I mean, I won like every trip. Like we had just gotten back from Kona, first class. Like I won like 4 Rolexes. Like I've won all of the trips, all of the prizes, all of the things. I had a company car, expense account, 8 weeks paid vacation. You know, lots of money, all the things like the prestigious.
But you weren't feeling fulfilled, it sounds like, right?
No. My husband said at that point in time, I was really worried because I felt like you were dying a little bit every day inside. And I could see that happening. And that's weird, you know?
Was it a lack of the challenge or what was it that kind of made you?
No, you have to understand in the medical space, I was not selling a drug at this time that was really changing someone's life in the sense of taking, like, let's say you have diabetes and you get this diabetes drug and it allows you to live this amazing life. A lot of the drugs I was selling, I felt like I was profiting. Someone brought this up. One of our managers at the time said that we are profiting from someone dying. Think about that.
Like the PR business.
We are profiting because someone is sick. And if you, at the core of that, it really went against who I am as a human being. If you think about it, like who you are built to be. I had at that time very young, very children. I had to go to the pediatric unit and leave thermometers for the children that were in the leukemia ward and stuff. So I would see parents like hysterically crying in the hallway. Like, it was very heavy to go through these hospitals. People don't realize the weight that we carry. You know, I would go in to do lunch and learns for some of the offices because I did private practice as well. And some of my favorite nurses, some of the days they were just really down. Like, what happened? They're like, well, we lost a patient today. So things like that, you got to understand the cumulative effect of that on your psyche is not good, period.
Yeah.
And as a parent, if you have a child, I felt like, oh my God, I'm going to walk into this space and like, I just carried that. I'm a very empathic person. And so I would carry this weight. So I knew I needed to make a change. So once that opportunity came, I was like, and my good friend who was a manager at the time said to me, you know, there's an optional place in the HR section. If you go in there, you can click the button and you can raise your hand and they'll give it to you. I said, really? He's like, yeah, no one knows about it because they don't want people to leave. And my other good friend was like, they're never going to fire you. You're too good. They will never fire you. I was like, you're right. They're never going to fire me. I'm never going to ever get that package. So I just went in there and I'll never forget it. It was like Labor Day weekend almost. And my husband and he was like, just do it. And he literally had to sit next to me and hold my hand when I pushed the button. I'll never forget it. And I almost threw up. And then my parents were really mad at me. And my brother was mad. All the people came to intervene about like, this is a bad decision. This is irresponsible. You have children. You have a mortgage. Because I've been the breadwinner. So my husband stayed at home because I have my oldest on the spectrum. He turns 17 today.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, he's blown us away with how like his milestones. And then at the time, like I had my daughter who was like, 3, and now I have another child. I've had a child in the business. I've battled breast cancer in the business. It's just been an interesting journey for me. But that's why I raised my hand. I left because I was like, I can't do this anymore. My husband's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. This is literally the decision. We're walking my dog. What do you want to do? I don't know. But I had no job. And he goes, why don't you just sell some houses? I was like, okay.
Sounds like a very smart man.
Sure.
He's like, I think he'd be good at it. I was like, okay. And keep in mind, this is like 2014, right after the bad.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just think you'd be great at it. I think you should go for it. And I believe in you. That's all he said.
What did that feel like when you mentally and emotionally, when you decided to leave the baggage, the prior career, and just embark on something that made you feel fulfilled? Like, was that a sense of relief, joy, freak out? Like, what was that emotional journey?
I think I was really scared. I had such a fear, but I also knew that I needed to leave. That the being what I knew, the misery that I knew. And I no one was like beating me and yelling at me. It wasn't that like kind of misery, but it was bad. It was like that mental prison I was in. And I wasn't showing up. I wasn't showing up as for myself. I wasn't showing up as a wife. I wasn't showing up as a mother. Like, it was bad. And I know I was in a really bad space. That's why this whole thing with the post-COVID, everybody in that mental space, I didn't need to be in the COVID because I had that, or I've already experienced that.
Yeah.
And I needed to be free because when you're in corporate, everything and such a regulated, you're an attorney, so and you're in a really, really regulated company like that, everything is watched. Everything you do is tracked and watched. And what do you. And it was so suffocating. Like, there was no space for being creative. There was no reward for being unique or different or trying to stand out. It was like you had to be like a robot. And I am not a robot. So it was very difficult.
You're articulating the exact feelings and emotions that I had when I was at the end of my landlord-tenant litigation. And it was landlord-tenant in San Francisco. So if you know anything about that world, it's basically the worst world of litigation because the landlords are slumlords, the tenants take advantage of everything, and everyone is miserable. And it's just, I had so many cases that everybody was mad and sad and losing their homes and fighting over, everything and anything. And it's just gut I don't even know. Like, it just drains your soul of life.
That's a perfect example. I felt like I was dying every day. When someone asked me that, I felt like I was slowly dying every day, but I would step outside and smile because that's who I am.
I just have a question for you, though. I mean, you know, so you're walking the dog and your husband says, what about real estate? And something, I mean, for you to say, okay, let's try that. Was there something that you liked about real estate? Was there something, I don't know, from yourself that you were drawn to it?
I went to school in North Carolina, in Raleigh, North Carolina, at a small women's college. When we bought our first house, you know, like the people send their mailers, the Geo Farm, because it was in the boom, like 2006. We would get all these mailers, and my husband would be like, man, that Ida, this lady named Ida Turbot, like that name, it just sounds like a freaking scary lady, right? She's just like big-haired Southern lady. I'm sorry for listening to this, but her name was Ida Turbot. But we get these mailers, and he was like, you could be like that. You'd be great at that. I'm like, no, I'm good. And I think I never wanted to go into something that I was 100% commission because I didn't, at that time in my life, I couldn't bet on myself. I hadn't developed the self-confidence, very insecure growing up. I know, hard to believe, right? Very.
I think we all have a level of insecurity at some point, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that whole journey of like being like the super awkward, nerdy, like only Korean child growing up in like one of the few, like in a very like non-diverse neighborhood. 'Cause I grew up in Virginia and it was not what it is today of acceptance and all that. None of it. It was just like, they just thought I was Chinese and that was it. So I think overcoming that, and I think that just being in my head, and when my husband mentioned it, I go, huh, why not? You know that feeling when you're like, wow, let's just do it. Kind of like when someone's like, you want to have pizza? Okay, it sounds good. That's literally the level of thought that I took. And so my girlfriend from high school, her realtor, who's this amazing guy named Michael Manuel, I called her. I was like, I've just done something crazy. And she's like, what? I said, I just quit my job. She's like, why? She's a social worker, so I knew she wouldn't yell at me. She's like very empathetic. And she was like, okay, I have an idea. You need to talk to my guy. He's really nice. He moved from the financial world to this and he's done great. So like that just shows you how networking and knowing people and leaning into your people right away, that's your tribe. So I immediately was just that person anyways. And so I spoke to this gentleman. He's like, first of all, someone's going to try to sell you something. Don't buy it. Always do right by the client and you can't go wrong. Like if you know something's not right, then don't do it and you'll be fine. Like he just basic advice. Like, you know, he's like, it doesn't matter where you're going to go. The brokerage has to make money. So just pay your damn split and go for it and do what you need to do. And don't get caught up in the jumping around and jumping around. It doesn't change anything. You got to do your work. So it's solid advice, right? But nothing like earth shattering, just like basic 1, 2, 3. And I was like, great advice. Signed up, took the class. And the beauty of it is that it all determines on who's behind you supporting you. And you know this, Hillary, because if your husband is against you or your partner or your wife is like, why are you doing that? Or your family is like, the person in your home is against you, you cannot succeed. Absolutely cannot.
Yeah.
He was the one that was like, you got this, you got this. Like, even if he was probably like inside going, uh-oh, he never, ever let on to that, ever. Even today. Yeah. I'm sure he's like, uh-oh, we're doing all this.
But the cool thing is you have that whole history of sales career, right? I mean, in a different asset, but you understood from your internal makeup that ultimately for the best way is doing best for your client, right? Like you said,
100%.
It was not fulfilling to sell something that wasn't, you know, making them, their life
It's a
better.
win-win. Yeah, so like, you know, like that's like the old like Dale Carnegie rule. Like if you help someone get what they want, you'll get what you want. Like 100% all day long. So like every time I've come into anything, I've always been like, how can I help you? Like, let me know how I can help you move forward. I don't ever come with the ask. I come with the, what do you need from me first? Because I always find that that's kind of universal no matter what you do in life. Even with your children. Like if you help your children do a bunch of stuff, like I've learned even with my kids, like with my daughter, like she loves having nice nails. I was like, all right, we'll go get nails done together. We'll spend time together. I was like, now you need to watch your sister. You see, like but it wasn't like watch your sister, then I'll get you the nails. I just was like, let's go do this, let's go do that. And then I asked her and she was like, absolutely, I'll do it. So there's less friction, I feel like, from that space if you kind of use that all over your life is what I've noticed.
Spencer, are you taking notes? Because I think that's reversed from how you raise your children.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was going to say, like, wow, your kids actually do things. That's kind of cool. I got a question for you, though, because you mentioned something. But you talked about coming from, I'm going to say, a place of contribution, right? Just to give it a term here. And so I know you do coaching.
Yes.
And so 2 questions for that. The first one is, were you coached yourself when you started drug sales? Like, did you have a mentor for that? And what made you decide to, I mean, you're coaching at a very high level. So what made you decide to coach other agents?
I was not coached when I was a drug rep in sales. It's such a corporate way. So we were coached by our by our managers. Our managers rode with us once a month and like would give feedback. We played nonstop. Like the whole job was coached. It wasn't like, and I was a trainer at that job. Like I was brought in house to bring on new salespeople. So just in a sense, like they didn't call it coaching, they called it training, right? Because it's like mandatory. You're being paid. Like I couldn't just be like, I don't want to be coached today. Like, but I never did. I never played sports growing up, which is hysterical. I hated every kind of sport possible. I don't like anything like that. However, I've run 2 marathons and I ride my bike daily. So I never thought of myself as an athlete in any way, but I do, understand like there's something called disciplines and habits that create what you're going to become. And so I did never have that rah soccer team coach and all that. I came from a family where like girls didn't do sports. I know, really old school, like Korean, like you don't do sports. Your brother can play soccer, but you can't. Like you play a piano. Like that's what I did. So, so a lot of it was just understanding that I got that regulated coaching from my sales world, which did help me because I'm one of those people, like if you tell me to do it, I'm going to do it. If you say, try this, okay, I'll try it. I mean, let me try it. Let me see if it works. I'm just always been that very coachable kind of person. It's always been on my reviews, like very coachable. You'll at least do it once or twice. If it didn't work, at least you try it. Like that's just who I am. I think some of those are just innate who you are personality wise. Because I'm like, why not? I don't have anything to lose. That's just kind of how I always thought about things. So we always ask our kids we teach them that way as well. Just give it a chance. And I think that's what I try to do with our agents and our brokerage is like, can you just be open-minded to something that may or may not work? It may not be for you, but maybe this would be for you. But that I never had formal coaching there. I did seek out coaching early on as an agent because I recognized from that corporate drug rep, like consistent check-ins and homeworks and all the stuff we had immediately going into the real estate world. It was like, here you go. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and I happened to enter into an office of sharks. I did not know this. Well, I knew it. He was like, we don't take agents, is what he said to me. I was like, what? What do you mean? The only reason I went there is because it was a minute from my house. That's honest truth. That's like, so many things are like that.
I picked the brokerage because it's closest to me.
It's closest to my house. It was the state company to my class with. And that's where I ended up for 8 years. But it would happen to be the office that it was the number 1 office in the whole area with the number 1 agents. The volume that the 30 agents in that office outproduced volumes of agents with hundreds of agents.
Yeah, I mean, but it's interesting there, right? So you went from being one of the top performers in your drug sales, and now you're going into a Shark Tank, or what I guess.
I didn't know what it was. Yeah. I didn't know what it was, and it's so bad that nobody spoke to me. Like,
oh, because you were new?
Yeah, they just didn't know. They just acted like I wasn't there. I was like a ghost in the room. I've never been in that world where people literally like go out of their way to ignore you. Like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't see you there. Can you imagine that? It's so weird. Like, I was like, this is weird. I would come home and my husband would be like, who cares? You don't need to talk to them anyways.
So this is interesting though, because your company is called The Collaborative, right? And that environment is like the very opposite of collaboration. So how did you decide, or when did you decide to exit that situation and start your own company?
So when I was there for so long that I actually changed the culture in that office, I believe.
Oh, good
in
for
my
you.
opinion. So I brought people into coaching. We kind of created some masterminds and some women's group. And anytime anyone new would come in, I would be like, hey, how's it going? How can I help you? What do you need? I made an effort to really engage the front office staff. And when we had the curmudgeon older people, I would poke fun at them and just try to get them to laugh. And like, I was trying to be that person in that office. You know what I mean? And so it was really, it became a very tight knit family to me. And I I grew into that space. And as I proved to myself, I think then they saw like, this is someone that we need to respect and hang out with. And some of my closest friends are in that office today. It was a very difficult decision to leave. The reason I made the decision, I was not looking to own a brokerage. I was not looking to leave the place I was at all. I was not looking for anything except I wanted to grow. So I put out into the universe and I prayed about growing. And I want to grow so that I can contribute. I want to grow so I can help develop and grow their agents. I want to grow so that I can grow wealth for our family, to have freedom of time, freedom of money, and freedom have relationship and contribute more, right? Ultimately. So I knew that if I really wanted to grow, then scale at that level, that I could not do it where I was. I just couldn't. It was like, you know, when you're the goldfish, everyone knows the goldfish,
yeah.
like, right? I was in this bowl that I knew I needed to get into a bigger bowl. And as scary as that was, I knew that in my heart.
I think what's interesting though also is that you didn't just say I want to make more money, right? Which is I think a mistake that a lot of agents make. But I think you had these goals of how can I achieve these things through what I'm doing. I think if you were doing anything else too, if let's just say you stayed in medical sales, the question is what can I do to carve out more time for my family? Or I think it's really important to have those goals. Do you coach to that of people to have a higher purpose in what they're doing?
Yes. 100%. Like we have a lot of conversations about what's the outcome, right? Because you have to really look at what is the outcome here, not I want this, I want that, I want this car, I want this vacation, I want this many deals, I want this many agents. It's more about what does your life look like? So if your life in 10 years looks like this, then how do we get you there? Right? Because there's that whole thing about, I call it the Google Maps view. Like if you, as a coach, I have the Google Maps view. So I can see above what's going on and I can say, this is the wrong way. Turn around. And everybody else, it's like the video game, like you're in the street level. And so when you're in street level, you think you're going the right way. And you're like, no, this is not the right way. And so just trusting your coach. And so earning that trust to be able to have that confrontation. And we call it a carefrontation of, hey, let's take a mirror and what exactly is going on here? Because you said you wanted these things for this outcome. And this is what your behaviors are showing me instead.
How do you find balance as a mom also? I know you said your husband's super supportive.
Yeah.
But how do you find it in your own life? And then how do you through coaching, teach your team, assuming there's, moms on your team as well, to find balance and feel fulfillment? Because I feel a lot of times, I'll speak for myself, put words in other people's mouths, but you feel spread thin, right? Like you want to help so many people in so many ways. How do you do that?
I have been someone, and I actually have done classes on this, on your schedule and calendar blocking. And I think one of the biggest things that people do is they don't let their calendar help them. They look at their calendar as like a constraint. So my calendar helps release a lot of stuff and frees me up so that when I'm somewhere, I'm present 100% because I know my calendar is taking care of stuff. Right. So if I'm overwhelmed or I'm like freaking out, it's because I'm not planned. I'm not organized. I'm not future pacing what's going to happen. So I've been a big believer in looking at, like, I review my week on Sundays. I look at what's coming ahead. I look at what's my big 3 that I want to do. I'm a big believer in Michael Hyatt's Focus Planner, but I use Google Calendar day to day. I have it on my phone. I put addresses in there. There's I have alarms going off left and right. I even have alarms that tell me to breathe and just be in a state of gratitude. Because at lunchtime, you're just chaotic and you feel like I've lost my day. I practice, for myself, priming and meditation is really, really important to be centered and just not to let things get absorbed that I don't need to absorb. Like when you hear something bad about something, like remember I was saying, like when I was in the hospital, I used to take on all that energy. So I've been in the practice about saying, I can feel bad about that for that person, but that's not mine to take on, right? How many of things do we take on that it's not ours to carry? And if you have agents or people that are working with you and you just like have that weight of someone's life on your shoulders, that's not our place to take. We have to, like, I've learned to shed that because it's not my place. I can be there with them and I can walk with them, but I don't need to take on their stuff. And so some of it's letting that, like, understanding those boundaries have really helped me. And time blocking does that. So for my kids, it's a perfect example. Today's my son's birthday. So I made sure to put an alarm on my phone, to schedule a post for him, to schedule messaging to him. And it's not to be like, oh, you're scheduling your life. No, it's so that I don't have to think about it. It's not swirling in my brain. Like it's there. And I know since it's there, it'll alert and like, oh yeah, I need to get that done. So I think if you allow like your schedule, the technology that's wonderful that we have to get your brain in there and use that as your brain so you don't have to swirl it around in your magnificent brain so you can be free to be creative and let the ideas come and let really the things we want in there, that has been a game changer for me.
That's a huge tip because similarly, like I live by my calendar and it does alleviate. And I had not thought of it that way until you just said it, that it really does take that weight out of your brain and it can go do other things. So
put other things in your calendar like this. Like I'll put on my calendar to call my mom. I'll put on my calendar, even if it's like a little 15-minute spot, like call these people. So it's not on some other list that you don't see it. It's popping up as your reminder. Or like I'll have a list of people like on a commute. I'll have a list of people that I need to follow up with. And I'm like, I'm driving anyways. I'll just let the thing call and I'll have the phone numbers pre-programmed so I can call them and check in. I pre-program like on Sundays, I write all my birthday cards out for the week. There's things you can do to prepare. Remember like before the whole concept of going to the gym is setting your clothes out, figuring out what class you're going to go to. So it sets you up for that success. And so if you know there are important places that you need to show up for your kids, this is what I've realized is that they don't really care about the stupid stuff. The things that are important to them, I realize like for my daughter, it's like she's 5, doing the Snapchat with her before bed. It makes her the happy. She could have cared if I came to her graduation yesterday at preschool. She could have cared less. That was for me. But for her, sitting there and not passing her off because I have work to do, taking the 20 minutes to sit there and laugh and do silly filters with her, that connects her to mommy. But we place our emphasis on, I got to be at this and I got to volunteer for that. That's not for them. That's for us to validate that we're doing the right things for them. So that's those are the things I've let go of, if that makes sense. Like
it does. And I've just gotten free coaching. So thank you.
Oh yeah. So like for myself, I do that. And I was like, my kids are magnificent. They're just amazing human beings. They're very different and individual. So you have to parent them individually. And I think sometimes as parents, we want to cattle them together or compare them and, why aren't you doing this? And also like there are things in life I realize that we can't control. You just have to let them, like what's important to them, just listen to them. So I do have crap space in my calendar when emergencies happen and I plug things in, like the space. Like I leave gaps and my staff knows that. But like, and I've learned to let go of one of my biggest things is focusing on the 20% that's going to move the needle, right? So if it doesn't fall into one of those buckets, I actively try to be like, who else can I give this to so that it's not in my brain or on my list. So that's how I do it.
You're talking about the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Are you? I'm just curious. Have you, with time blogging, have you ever read The One Thing?
That's Gary Keller.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I read that book.
Yeah.
But the Power of One More, Ed Milet's book is really good. If you like.
What is that one about?
It's just the power of doing one more, like one more thing, doing one more call. Like if you could just do one more, it'll change your thing. So I'm an avid reader. I'm like That's my superpower. I read really, really fast. I took that test apparently. So I read about 4 books a month. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm a weirdo. My husband's like, don't tell people. But I read about a book a week. So
and these are business books you're talking about that you're reading?
All different books. Like I'm reading Joe Dispenza's book right now, which is about like the quantum field, about like how you, like this is it right here. Really, really good.
Nice.
And I just finished The Untethered Soul and Living Untethered, which is, I read that twice, Michael Singer, and it's about like letting it go. So I read all different, like it's all personal growth, business, personal growth. I'm in a book club. I do read fiction once in a while. The Pachinko book is excellent. And so like, I'm a big believer in personal development and making that prioritized. So I probably read about 30 minutes to an hour every day in the morning. And on the weekends, I read a lot more. And I find I use a lot of what I read and I apply it to my coaching sessions and I share with them. So they always know, like, what do we have to read next? Like, what's going on? Like, what do we have to do?
I'm doing something in the morning. You have the most willpower. So you're reading for 30 minutes in the morning, which is great. A lot of people leave that for later in the day. What do you do in the morning? Like, what are the things you have to do in the morning?
So, okay, there's a health piece to it. I drink apple cider vinegar in the morning with a big thick glass of water. It's gross, I know, but that's just what I do. And it's supposed to be good for your body. So, and I'm 47, so I'm like trying to do good for my body things. Before I have my coffee, it's my reward. I have to have that. And then I do this, you'll appreciate this, Hillary, you're a woman, this like face thing. Anyways.
Oh, the like face roller massager thing?
With ice. Yeah. That wakes me up.
I have my jade roller. Come on.
Okay. So it like wakes you up for people that are like, yes, I keep it in the fridge. I pull it out. And of course, my little girl's like, what is that? Anyways. And my dogs are barking. But my big thing is I do a priming meditation, either that or I do a meditation for about 15 to 30 minutes in the morning about setting intentions and gratitudes. I journal. Religiously, I do this, and then I read for 30 minutes, I work out, and then I go.
Okay, so you start your day what time?
Anywhere between 5 and 6. So it just depends on the night before, if I've decided to watch the extra episode of Succession that I should not be watching. But that's my guilty pleasure.
So good.
Okay.
I am a human being. I get stuck.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
It's so good. I also get circled down the drain with the TikToks. I'm a human being. I have guilty pleasures like all of us, and I'm an inner 13-year-old trapped in my body. So I can't help it. I love all the things. Yeah.
So when you created the collaborative, you have your routine.
Yeah.
How did you make decisions of who to bring on when? Your growth of that company, because everybody's story is so different. I'd love to hear yours.
Oh my God, Hillary, it was bad.
Nothing's bad. It all happens for a reason. You said that.
I'm so grateful. Like, I sucked in the beginning. Okay, first of all, nobody's born a leader. Okay, that's a lie. Let's be real. It is a lie. Some people have leadership tendencies, right? So I am a very high, if you look at the disc, I do a lot with the disc because I, coach to the disc, So I am like off the charts DI, as we both, and I have some S because I'm a mom, and C, there's no C. That's so not me. So I know myself very well, but I also know that I have such high standards for myself. I'm an achiever, all those things. So I didn't understand why these people weren't doing what I told them to do. I'm like, just do it. Just do it. Totally. What's wrong with you? And if one mistake's made, my husband calls them crazy eyes. He's like, you need to put the crazy eyes back in. Okay. I'm like, okay. So he is very high S, and it's like a complete comedy show. When I think back to all the different assistants I had probably, I'm sure they probably hate me, these people, but that's okay. You don't have to be loved by everybody. I'm good with that. But I practiced on many souls to become the leader that I am today. And I continue to grow and struggle every day because I want so badly for people to win. More than anything, I want people to win and I want people to succeed. that is where I truly fulfilled, not the deal closing. And I love helping my past clients, and I have 99% referral based business, and I love my people. And that's very rewarding and exciting. But there's something about helping agents become the agent that they never thought they could be. It is freaking amazing. And so I've been able to see that, the collaborative, it is so cool. And on the flip side, I've also seen people tap out and say, this isn't for me. And being able to have those necessary conversations where you're like, don't think we're in alignment. And when I say that now, I can say that very confidently because we have standards now. We have core values now. We implemented EOS. Once I understood that it was okay to say these are our standards and this is what we're going to coach to and expect, I feel like the right people showed up, right? Instead of just accepting this is who I'm going to get and being like, let me just try to pound them into what I want them to be. It wasn't going to happen that way. And so for me, it was a very soul crushing experience to my knees. I can't tell you how many nights I didn't sleep, how many times I didn't do my exercises because I was really struggling when I opened this. It was no one tells you how hard this stuff is. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it because it was horrible. Like, I don't know if I could have done it again, but it was necessary for me to be what I am today, for sure.
Did you feel responsible for the success of the people you brought on, or was the issue that they weren't responsible to you?
It's not even being responsible to me. They weren't responsible to themselves. Mm-hmm. So like, there's a lot of people that show up and say that they want this and that, but they won't do the work. So like, there's that concept of like, your goals are here, but your behaviors are over here. Like, it just, trying to get them to come. You can't push people to do something. You know what I mean? Like, you just can't. You can't make someone do anything. I can give you everything on all the tools, but you're going to give me every excuse of why you can't do it. Mm-hmm. Right. And, I think coming out of COVID, like, I had a lot of tumultuous changes in staff and all that. And I was coaching still and doing all these things. And when I made the decision to leave and move over, one person ultimately decided not to come, and he wasn't a fit. So in hindsight, I'm so thankful that it didn't happen. But in the time, I was like, oh, what did I do? Like, it's me. It's like a rejection, right? But so now I understand now, nothing is about me. That's what the Michael Singer book, The Untethered Soul, comes into play. It's nothing to do with me.
I think that goes for finding the right clients too, right?
Yes.
Like, at the beginning, when you start out, most people will just, any client, because they're thinking, oh my gosh, I need a paycheck, right?
Yes.
But and then it turns into, if you don't have standards for the way that you do business, the people will suck the life out of you again. And you'll be back to being that soulless space.
Yes. So I saw that happening. And actually, my husband even said at one point in the business, he's like, oh my God, this business is crazier than that last job you had. He literally said it. He's like, what have we done? I'm like, I don't know, man. But I was like, I'm going to burn to a crisp if I keep at this rate, So I realized, like, you have capacity. We all have capacity, right? So until I learned the concept of leverage, which is another key, I think, takeaway, is that if you're going to get into business, if you're going to do business, you need leverage. Whether it's someone else helping you physically, whether it's technology leverage, whether it's like sometimes like you pass off things and you get the referral fee and be okay with it. Like, I'm not someone that drives more than 30 minutes to anything.
So your geographic area, that's one thing that you've decided, right? For your own personal health and well-being is 30-minute radius.
Yep. And I refer out everything else. And so it doesn't make sense to me. And so right now I'm in a space of referring out most of the buyers. So I'm just really working with listings now because I have a new vision of growing. So my four things for 20%. So 5% each would be focusing on leadership. So anything that's in the leadership bucket, anything that's growing our brokerage, anything that's retaining our agents that we have now and our staff, like loving on them, like I would love on my clients, right? And the fourth one is recruiting. But recruiting intentionally. So for those people that are listening that are agents that are wanting to grow, again, I really struggle with recruiting in the beginning because we have people that help us to recruit and they're like, well, what's your like UVP? I don't know. We're great. Like, it's just like really hard. You're like, well, I don't know. They should just want to come. We're just fabulous. Like, but it kind of got very like salesy for me, because I'm not like that. I'm sure like I just am not that person. I'm not that like commission breath, like buy it. Like I'm just not that person, you know? And I really struggled with this whole when they're like, you got to make your calls. You got to, you know, I tell my agents to make their calls, but I don't do it in a space of like, we're not wearing these headsets and dial with the dialers and all that. I never grew my business. That just wasn't the business that I wanted to do. And that's the beauty of our business. If you like that, I'm like, that's awesome, because there's a space for you for that, and you're going to kill it. But if you don't like it, there's other ways to do this business. And that's what would make real estate so fascinating to me. There's so many ways you can do this business and be successful at it that, isn't it? It's amazing. Like, what business is really like that? There are very few. So you can carve out what you want it to be and make that your niche. And so ours is about having the wow experience. And our name was chosen on purpose. Like, I always thought it was so weird when people were so like, this is mine. Like, you know, like I don't want anybody to know about my stuff. And I'm like, why not? You know, who cares? Like, help each other, like cover each other. Like, and I think that's the space that we create in our office, is that we're all there to help each other grow and help each other expand. And when I see like one agent teaching the other agent how to use the DocuSign or how to move things over, and they're all answering each other's questions in Slack, I love that. Like, that's just like makes me excited. And like, I don't know, it's just so cool to see like things come to life that you envision happening, you know, if that makes sense. We're starting, it's something called the Monday Mixer at our office on Mondays, once a month. And we're inviting all agents in our brokerage and anybody, other brokerages. It's no business, no recruit. It's just a place to come, because it's lonely out there. And I'm inviting people that I am having conversations with, like, so they can see what we're about. And it's a space of no, like, we're not here to like turn you into something or vampire you or whatever. But it's more just
Here,
like,
have some
hey,
Kool-Aid.
yeah, just hang out with us and see what you're about. And because one of the biggest things, I don't ever want to bring someone into our brokerage that's not a match for us. That's like really bad too, right? So that's something I thought about in this whole journey.
When you're talking about bringing in people that might not be, so I understand there's a cultural fit, right? You definitely have to have that in an office. But if they want to do business, like maybe there is somebody who is one of those dial people, and you're talking about, you know, because you can plateau very easily. You can get to a thing, you know, how many people can you get to in your farm when you're the top person? Just curious, if somebody came in and said, let's try this, you know, can I do dialing, or can I do whatever? How do you feel about that? How does that integrate with what you're doing?
I'm someone that meets someone where they are. So if I have someone that wants to dial, I actually have Google pay-per-click leads, and we have dialer, we have calls. Like we kind of do a little bit of the business. Once you open the brokerage, I'm saying fear-based, referral-based for myself, my personal business. So there is an expectation for our team agents. So I have a team at the brokerage, solo agents, and then we have the extended offering. And our team agents do have an opportunity to participate in lead gen and lead flow through our through Sierra Interactive, which is one of the companies that we use to get Google pay-per-click leads feeding into our website. So that's a big thing for them. And I've actually had an agent, she just closed almost $1 million buyer with that. So she's been really good about calling. We have expectations, like when you go on vacation, you turn leads off. Like we do a huddle every morning for 15 minutes. Our marketing director runs the huddle of all the agents calling in to say, like, what level are you functioning at? Every Friday we do selling skills. So I show up personally and lead a selling skills class for our agents. And then if I can't come, like I'm traveling for work or conference, and then we have a guest speaker come in and train them on something. Will Wired, who's our broker of record, will do contract training classes. I've specifically asked him to go through contracts, Q&A, because that's one of the downfalls, I think, in our field, is that there's no true education and true training beyond like some, here's a webinar, watch it, or, oh, go figure it out. Like I literally did my first contract. It's a miracle that I did. I mean, I can't even believe that happened. So like, it's terrifying. I know. Avert your ears, Hillary, because you're an attorney. You're like, oh my God, like, you know. So I can't believe I made it. And so we have our title. I just taught a CE class at my office with our title company. She went over surveys and what you need to know about surveys. So we try to offer value beyond what you're going to get anywhere else. And so our brokerage is still coached by a Mastery Tom Ferry coach, Emily Kettenberg. She is amazing. And she just taught last week, she taught about like the 5 different ways you close. So like we are always having things that are working on, and there's homework, there's challenges. We do a lot of video. We're video first brokerage. So we have one of our core values is that, you know, we're cutting edge. And so that's what I love about the partnership aside, is that it allows us to really fulfill our core value of being cutting edge and stepping into the changes that are going to happen in business. So it's kind of hand in hand.
Where do you want to take the collaborative, or where do you see it going in the next year or then 3 years down the road?
So yeah, in the next year, our vision would be to obviously feed into our team, agents, and continue to grow the team and the brokerage itself. I kind of had this great idea of having like around 25 by the end of the year. That would be like a nice number for me if I had to quantitate it. But it's more about the long game, I think. I've really opened my eyes now to expanding to wanting to pour into agents that want to lead. And having the conversations I've had, what I have realized in small teams, like they may have one agent and an assistant or like a you know, they're doing it. They're crushing it. Nobody is pouring into these agents to be leaders. No one is asking them, what are you doing to grow as a leader? How are you leading your team? How are you expanding your team? How are you growing as a human being? How are you growing in your family? Anybody that they're a part of, they're doing so well. What does the sales manager do? You're doing good. Keep growing. Awesome job. Awesome. You're killing it. Or unless they're actively seeking a coach, and even when you're working with a coach, it's really about skills, right? It's not about like how are you growing as a leader. And so that fascinates me. And so like I kind of want to be known as like the leadership growth person, like the agent that wants to come and grow as a human being. They partner with us and they become an extended offering. And I would love to expand that through all of Virginia if possible. And, you know, if they're like, hey, we want to understand how you implemented EOS. I have implemented it into my brokerage. I know firsthand what you need to do into your smaller setting to make that happen so that you can, you know, do that. So that's kind of my niche.
So EOS, and I apologize, and just so Hillary knows, because I know what it means, of course, and I'm sure Hillary's wondering, what, I have no idea what that is.
You're asking for a friend?
No, what is it? What is EOS? I'm asking for a friend. Yeah, because I have this itch also that's,
Entrepreneurial Operating System by Gino Wickman. So I have the book right here. See, I'm like real deal. I actually really read for real.
There you go.
He is the real deal.
So like, see on my little tags. So we have our, so we do our one pager. We have our level 10 meeting every Monday. We follow everything, the SEG. We follow exactly like how it's supposed to be. We do a scorecard. So every week the agents turn in their numbers by 10 a.m. or they get goose egged. And I have a one-to-one with each of our agents at the end of the month for a 30-minute one-to-one about what's going on, how are things going, what do they need to work on, what do they need from us, how do we need to help you grow, what are the gaps, things like that. So we have that once a month. It's scheduled in the schedule. So it's a very calculated way to grow. And we look, why the scorecard is so important is we're able to see the trends. So remember you were asking me about volume earlier. I really focus more on the number of conversations we're having versus the volume, because it's the leading indicator. The lagging is going to be there. Just like if you work out every day and you eat well, you're going to lose weight. So I don't worry about that weight loss or getting on the scale. I'm worrying more about, did they have the conversations? Are the appointments happening? Are they writing contracts? You know, the closings are going to come when all that stuff is being done. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of, so like the scorecard allows us to see that.
It's so clear. And I want to thank you again for being our guest, because it is so clear that you not only own it in your own personal well-being and being a leader to your company, but also in the real estate space in Virginia as a whole. I would be knocking on your door asking to be coached in life, not just real estate. Like come help coach me be a better version of me. Yeah. So I know we're wrapping up, but Alicia, thank you so much for being our guest, and I look forward to many more conversation with you at various events down the road for sure.
Well, it was my pleasure. It was so much fun. It always goes by so fast when you're just having, interesting conversations. So
100% it does. But thank you again. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. I appreciate the opportunity.
And great to meet you, I actually have to say.
Great to meet you.
Yeah.
Well, I figured out what I have to do this weekend, Spencer. I need to read more books.
But you know what I'm going to do is Sunday, I'm going to be writing my birthday cards, which I thought was, I got to tell you what really impresses me is that she is systematic about everything. She's systematic about her joy. She's systematic about how she hangs out with her family. And that's, I think, why she can get so much done.
Calendaring is a hard thing to learn, but if you can master calendaring, I find that it helps in all different facets of your life too. So I think I'm on the same page with Alicia as far as that is a tool that I rely on heavily. And it alleviates a lot of angst in my life. Yeah,
I've got to start using Google Calendar, it sounds like, and kind of organize my life that way. But I really like the fact that she has this set, that she does her health stuff, and then she does her meditation. And I thought she was going to say like, oh yeah, and then I start working around 3 in the afternoon because but the important thing is her me time. It sounds like A, that's scheduled, but B, it sounds like she's really driven on how she is going to do it. Right? Not driven, really directed in how she's going to do it. I think internally she's very driven, and to give and lead others, it's very clear she has to make sure that her house is in order, so to speak. And the support she gets from her husband is wonderful. I think she's able to then translate that into being the support for the rest of the people at the collaborative. And that seems to be a theme, right? You fill up your own self and then you can waterfall it over to other people. Another thing too is just how intentional she was in her change. That's like one day I'm just not getting what I need out of life. This career it's just not doing it for me anymore. And I mean, just to make that pivot, that one day, I'm walking my dog and I'm decided can't do it. Honestly, it's scary to understand that you could be leaving this lucrative career, and it's just that feeling of not being fulfilled, honestly, is a huge driver. And that takes a lot of guts to say, you know what, I need to be happy. This is soul sucking. I need to be present and show up for my family. So here we go. We're going to do something different. So she rocked it. Fully, but jumping without even knowing what was there, and which speaks to confidence in she knew that she'd be able to do something. Yep. And that's the same like gut decision, right? Like when I left the brokerage and started my own, it was that, okay, I'm going in the deep end, but I had confidence, just like Alicia had confidence in herself. I think that's a big part of it. She clearly owns it. No doubt about it. She is a rock star, and I'm excited. We'll have to check in with her in a year and see where the collaborative is. And if she's met those goals, I have no doubt in my mind that she can do it. Yeah, absolutely none. Yeah. And we'll get her book list and we'll put it in the show notes. So there's a lot of really good reading that she mentioned that we'll have to add in there. Yeah, I'm looking at my bookshelf. I'm thinking, oh man, when are we going to get to those? Like, we have some work to do. Hillary, thank you for letting me co-host with you. Anytime. Thank you, everybody, for joining us again. Like we said, we will put the books that Alicia mentioned and some others that she's going to send over in the show notes. If you would like to email any questions to Alicia, please do so. And we will see you on the next show with another amazing guest who definitely owns it.